Hello, welcome to the Galaxy Man Show. I am here with this incredible actor known by the name of Mike Edwards, who has been in two incredible Power Rangers series, Power Rangers Overdrive as the role of Thor, the God of Thunder, and also Power Rangers Ninja Steel as Brody's father. So I'm pleased to announce Mike on the show for today's guest and today's last guest of the week. And Mike has also been in a popular NZ drama called Shortland Street. So yeah, I'm proud to announce Mike on the show. So please welcome Mike. And yeah, he's Mike.
Hi, Jacob. Hi, people that are watching. My name's Mike Edward. I'm a Kiwi-based actor. And I believe Jacob found me or contacted me because I had a couple of roles on Power Rangers, which brings me here this evening. I've done a few other things as well, but happy to have a chat and pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you. Awesome. So we'll dive right into the questions now, Mike. So for my very first question, as you mentioned, Power Rangers is such an incredible, huge franchise. And you were actually in two seasons of Power Rangers as the role of Thor, the God of Thunder, in Power Rangers Overdrive, first up. What was it like playing Thor, and what was it like getting to work with the cast of Overdrive?
Yeah, it was pretty cool actually. One of my favorite. Your question actually made me remember. I hadn't thought about it for a while. I can't remember what year it was, but it was a while ago now. But it was one of my first roles out of drama school, and what was fun was the character that was Furious, the Ice Lord, was one of my friends from drama school that we went through, 3 years studying acting together, a guy called Gerald. And it's really fun because when you study acting, you're doing all the Shakespeare and the big emotional scenes, and you're trying to do the best acting you can when you're a student. And here we were, one of our first gigs out of drama school, and he was dressed as the Ice Lord, and I was dressed like Thor, and he was shooting ice bolts at me, and I was deflecting them with my hammer and shooting fire bolts at him. And in practical terms, when this before the special effects are put on, it's just me and him sort of in costume going like that. And I remember thinking how hilarious it was. It was, but it was a really nice time. It was great to work with him on the show and have a play.
So we'll dive right into the next question. So you also were in another season of Power Rangers as Brody's dad in Power Rangers Ninja Steel. What was it
Yeah.
like getting to be in Power Rangers Ninja Steel and getting to work with Will Shufelt, who's also an incredible actor? And yeah, what was it like getting to work with Will?
Yeah, I like Will. I haven't I've been following him a little bit just because we're obviously connected on social media, and I think he went through a real good fitness phase of, getting into that world. But he was a very dedicated young actor. I mean, all of them are, those young kids that get on that show, it's often, for a lot of them, it's their first big break. So they're pretty excited and enthusiastic and, very passionate about doing a good job. I'm always astounded at the level of physicality that those guys do. They're all ex-dancers or gymnasts, and I think Will was shredded. He looked like he was a machine, like even at that young age. But no, it was really fun. I mean, I was stoked to get a run again on that show and have a bit more of a recurring part. And obviously, it's one of those bucket list things when you get to put on the spandex and actually be a ranger for a while. The 7-year-old inside yourself is going, yes.
So on to my very next question. So you have also been in a very popular NZ drama called Shortland Street. Very incredible role as the role of Zach, by the way. Loved your performance as Zach back in the day. What was it like playing Zach in Shortland Street? And just overall, who was your favorite cast member to work with in Shortland Street?
That's interesting. Yeah, Shortland Street's a bit of a rite of passage here in New Zealand, and I think, from the second it sort of landed, everyone sort of, when you're young and up and coming, you hope to get a role on it one day. So I was pretty thrilled. I didn't know he was going to be a villain when I started, but in lots of ways, that was the best thing that ever happened to me as an actor. Because since then, I kind of got to prove my chops in that mold or realm, and I've been able to play a lot of villains in New Zealand TV ever since. In fact, I think that's all I've done in recent years on New Zealand television. So that's really cool, because it's like, as an actor, it's fine being sort of put in a position, you just want to be working. So Shortland Street itself it's a machine. It's really, really fast. You learn really quickly to learn your lines really fast, and you also learn that just doing it is good. You're never going to get a great performance when because everything is really compromised, the speed when you're shooting soap opera television like that. You just got one shot at getting it right, so you learn really fast. Favorite person to work with, they're all, it was a lovely group. They were all really kind and welcoming. They're in a bit of a bubble out there. There was, people get a bit caught up in things, and there's internal dramas that are going on, which, was a bit surprising, outside of the show itself, but I guess that's what happens when you work on something like that for a while. I really enjoyed, and still dear friends to this day, with Amanda Billing, who played Sarah Potts, who was my first girlfriend on the show. I've got a piece of her art hanging in my house here. She's a really good artist, lovely person. Loved working with Ben Mitchell. He is choice, and he knows. He's just been doing that show for so long. He just knows exactly the levels to meet. So that was fun. And dear old Pua, who's not with us anymore. I got to know him really well working on that show, and he was a lovely man.
So on to my very next question. So what made you decide as a person, and especially as an actor, to get into acting in the first place?
I quite like this question. I think I was always lived in a world of make believe. Like as a young kid, right up until 7 or 8, I was dressed in tights or whatever, being Superman or Peter Pan, or just I lived in this kind of make believe world. And I remember actually at around the age of 7 or 8 being up a tree and the neighbors coming around. It was the first time that I suddenly became aware that green tights weren't maybe that cool, and I didn't come down. Like I hit it up there, but I always knew. So I had a strong imagination, and when I saw anything on TV or stage shows at that very young age, I just believed it. I had this really strong sense of belief. So when I finally got the courage to actually start doing some acting, I was terrible, but I loved it. Like I just loved performing and pretending to be someone else, and it's still the thing to this day that I love the most. And I've come to realize that is the joy, to play and to play make believe and escape from this world, that the mundanity that surrounds us all. It's really fun. So getting to do characters, I hope I get to continue.
So I have to ask, by the way, with performing like either in TV or theatre, like what do you think is the most challenging? Like theatre or TV?
Oh, out of the two genres,
Yeah.
they both have their challenges. Theatre, I think you've got to be a little bit more on your craft in terms of you have to shape and hold the audience. So you've got to make really good choices around building and bring the people with you in the high points and the low points. And in TV, you don't really have control of that because that's in the editor's world. But in TV, there's a whole nother level of relaxation that you need to be able to do, because in theatre you really can just get caught up in the scenes because there's nothing stopping you and the audience are pretty much in darkness, whereas on TV surrounded by 50 people, and to be in the moment and be really truthful and oblivious to everyone is quite an exercise in concentration. So that has its own challenges, and the levels of performance are obviously really different as well, but over time you get better at knowing what you're doing. You'd hope so.
Yes.
Cheers.
So, cheers. So on to my very next question. So like with performing, like what has been your most favorite set to work on of all time, and why?
I got to work in the first episode of Ash versus Evil Dead as
Yes.
as the cop that becomes the very first Deadite. And I Sam Raimi directed that first episode. He came all the way out to New Zealand, and he spent a lot of time on it. I got to work with Sam for like 5 weeks, and it was. I've never personally been a big fan of the horror genre until I worked on that show, and I saw the joy that Sam had in the special effects. Him sitting by the camera and flicking the blood at you while you're there, and the stunts I got to do on that show. I got to do them all myself. Hurled against the wall, jumping off the ceiling, and it was major Hollywood director on a really big show, and the first ep, which so everyone was very excited. So that was probably my favorite to this date. Outside of going right back to, there was a point where Kiefer Sutherland had a lull in his career, and he came to New Zealand and did a really bad, made straight for TV or straight for video movie called Sweetheart or the Song for Bong, and I was like, it was before drama school for me, and I got to play a war dude with a big gun and meet Kiefer Sutherland, and I thought that was just neat because he was Lost Boys is one of my favorite movies.
Have you ever seen the show, the New Zealand show back in the day? It was called The Tribe. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah, totally. I was at the time the Tribe was filming in Wellington in 1990, no, 2003, I think it was, or 2002 maybe. I was filming a TV show called The Strip in Wellington, and Fleur Seville, who was in the Tribe at the time, and Dwayne Cameron, they were like flatting above or below me or something like that. So we all got to hang out a lot, and yeah, I got to see what was going on there. I never got to work on that show.
I love that. I love that. So on to my very
Hmm.
next question. So if you could work with any top three actors in the acting industry, who would they be and why?
Man, I don't know. I mean, you got to. I never will, but it would be amazing to work with someone like Leonardo. One of those really amazing big actors, just because they have so much strength and charisma. You can imagine what they'd be like in person. It would be incredible. Plus the fact that if you were working with someone like that, it would mean you're an amazing film. So like, you really made it. So someone like that. Kiwi wise, there's a guy I went to drama school with called Phil Brown, who to this day I still think is one of the best actors I've ever known. Even seen. He's never really got the break that I think he deserved, but he's just outstanding. I'd love to work with him again because I only worked with him at drama school when I was pretty shitty. It would be nice to kind of bat against him now. But yeah, I guess Edward Norton would be another actor that I think is really fierce and exciting and scary. I'd love to work against someone like that.
So on to my very next question about TV, like franchises and movie franchises. So like what is your all-time franchise of TV or film that you've been watching currently and why?
What have I been enjoying watching currently? Did you say?
Pretty much, yeah.
Um, my favorite one that I've just finished at the moment that I really enjoy was White Lotus. I think that's a really good show. But the first season, I think, maybe a little bit better than the second season, but it was still really good writing, clever, interesting, great character drama, really good performances, um, and comedic, like comedy because of the characters and the situations, not because they're playing for gags, if that makes sense. So it's kind of fascinating to watch, like you're watching a slow motion train crash. And outside of that, I saw a really fun show called Severance, which I thought it made a really nice comment on society. I kind of like philosophical shows like that talk about the world. Severance was quite good.
So on to my very next question. So if you could have any dream role in TV or film, what would your dream role be and why?
Um, I guess it kind of changes as you get older. I always, back in the day when I was a bit fitter and younger, I was always keen on getting one of those superhero roles. But I think that time has passed. Uh, for now, I'd be really happy to have a ongoing career as the guy that no one recognizes in lots of different things. That's quite a fun thing. I think uh, one day when I get to relocate to America, which I will once my kids grow up, and just spend some time actually jobbing on different programs in a bigger industry will be really fun. If I was The role I really like is Macbeth. I've played it on stage before, and it's a pretty good role. I'd like to do that either on stage again in a bigger circumstance or on a screen sort of version of it.
So on to my very next question. So what advice would you give to upcoming actors that want to get into acting? And yeah, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, this is cool because I think it's a little bit ephemeral acting, and I think it's very easy to think the answers are outside of yourself. There's a lot of teachers telling you the way you should do things, or a lot of good actors that have just been amazing that you try and emulate. But ultimately, the one piece of advice I would give a young actor, or even my younger self, if I had the chance, would be to just be authentic. Like Jacob's truth is different to Mike's truth, and it doesn't mean either one of us are right. But if you do what's right for you and I do what's right for me, then we both playing Hamlet. They'll both be really good versions of Hamlet, So I think it's having the confidence to know that you're enough and no one else is you. And when it comes to auditions and roles, you stick to the stuff inside you that makes it real and makes you excited, and that'll be enough. You don't have to be someone you're not. I think when people try and be beyond themselves or copy something else, they're just going to be a cliche or a bubble, and it's going to be really obvious. The other thing I think I'd say to a young actor is, I think a lot of people think acting is like putting layers on, but I think really, really it's about being brave enough to take the layers off. Like we operate in this world and we will protect ourselves with the way we dress or our humor or whatever, but to be brave enough to not put those layers of protection on and really be afraid and be vulnerable, know you're not good enough, and just sit in that and have the courage to show that is good acting, because as the audience, we watch someone that has been vulnerable and true, and we go, oh my God, that's me, and we connect, which is, I think that's kind of the job of an actor, to be brave enough to be flawed and mucked up on screen.
So on to my very next question. So what are like the positive and negative side into the acting industry? And how do you get through those like negative moments as an actor?
Well, obviously there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of missed work, a lot of time without work. And I certainly can't say that I've made it, I've had a luckier career than some. But that's pretty hard, when you want something. It's like anything, when you when you have a dream as a child and you want it, to not get it is painful. It's really painful. And you get a lot of people choosing away from it because of that pain of, to empower themselves. They go, okay, that's it, I'm out. So I think to deal with that, you have to, because you can't control whether you get cast in something or not, but you can control if you create work yourself, be it in writing or making your own theatre for no money or making your own short film. You can control your own production, and you can control your own training. So you can always go to classes and work on getting better. Those are things you can control. So you control what you can, and then you let go of what you can't. I think it's hard because society tells us, you got to get a stable job and you got to get a mortgage and you got to have all these kind of things, especially as you get older in this world. So letting go of those and just going, it's okay to be an artist, I can be broke, is probably helpful as well. To just sit in that comfort and know that being an artist doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be famous or anything like that. Like, I think striving for fame or anything is wrong. Work on your craft, work on your talent, and then you kind of cross fingers, and then ultimately you end up getting some work. But yeah, it's a hard one. It's a very hard career. I wouldn't, I don't think anyone really does it if they don't really love it.
So on to my very last question for you, Mike. So like what's next for you for the rest of 2023 onwards? Like any projects that you would like to announce?
Yeah, sure. I was lucky enough to go down to Christchurch last week and film on a thriller TV show called The Cleaner. Only had a couple of days, but it's a really big production down there. So stoked to be a part of that. I don't know when that's due out, maybe end of this year or next year. I have a circus theatre company called the Dust Palace, and we're making a work that called Te Tangata Tui, which is traveling to Vancouver at the end of the year. So I don't know if I can hitch a plane ride to go and watch that one, but that's pretty cool. But the Dust Palace is like talking about creating your own stuff. That's really exciting that I've got a vehicle that I can direct and write shows for. And there's another show that I'm writing, which is we're going to write this year, maybe put on next year. It's a long process, but that gives me joy and makes me still feel like I'm an artist, even though I might not have any work.
Well, I would just like to say thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you coming onto my show for today. Everyone, definitely go support Mike. He is such an inspirational actor and person. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much again. Do you have like any last final thoughts or anything that you'd like to share to people on the show?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I think it's I think it's really nice that you reached out. It's really cool to be able to talk, and sometimes I feel a little bit overwhelmed with the fandom of Power Rangers, because as a jobbing actor, you just turn up and you go, okay, what am I doing here? And then suddenly it's quite a thing, So that's really exciting, and it's only really in retrospect after time that I've come to realize how lucky I was to have that opportunity. So lovely to talk to you,
You too.
and I hope that I said some things which were interesting.